Same way about your mother's mating habits. Hello, PAX! Welcome to the upgraded Awesome Hour. This is the Don't Forget to Be Awesome Hour. And because we are not forgetting to be awesome, we will begin today with some entertainment from one of my favorite people on all of the internets. The reason I believe YouTube was invented, Mr. Hank Green. Hank has to plug into a box, which is exactly what it sounds like. So I will tell you why I asked Hank to be here today. I am an enormous fan of Hank and his brother John. They have a YouTube called The Vlog Brothers. John is an amazing author, and Hank is the brain behind VidCon, which next to PAX is probably the best con that you'll ever go to. And they are the leaders of a movement called the Nerd Fighter Movement. It turns out that Hank and John and I have been trying to accomplish the same goal of convincing people to be awesome for a number of years. We've just been doing it in parallel. So finally, for the first time ever, we were able to steer our awesome starships into one another into an explosion of super awesome.
Safe explosion. Yeah. I'm afraid of explosions when there's so many people in the same room. I'm sort of fear-driven person. I have to pee really bad.
I peed before.
I did too. I didn't have to pee out there.
Do you have to pee again?
I actually was in the toilet while Will was in the bathroom, and I was like,
That would have been awkward. Are you plugged in and ready to go, sir?
Sounds like it, sir.
Ready to go.
Yeah. You start off by saying hello to my brother John. Because I make videos, and we start off every video by saying good morning to each other. Oh, this is just going to look like darkness. There we go. There you all are. So you're just going to say good morning, John. It's wait, what is it? It's Friday. Wait. No, okay. 1, 2, 3, go. Good morning, John. That's great. Some really good lens flare on that. So I wrote a song quite a while ago. It was one of the first 5 songs I ever wrote. Because I'm a big fan of Star Trek: Next Generation. I never imagined that I would be singing it with that standing over there. The first... What? I'm fine. Hi over here. I feel like I was ignoring you. My bad. So the first verse of this song is from the perspective of a young ensign. The second verse is from a perspective of a person who was frozen in the late 22nd century and then thawed later, and he was like, "Where's my money?" So that's the basic. If you remember that episode, of course you do. So that's just your primer. Starting 42695.3 was a pretty big day for me. I was given my first command. Now, I don't think Wesley Crusher would actually sound like this when he grew up. In fact, I know he wouldn't say it. Just an aside, do you remember the episode where Q comes and grants Wesley's greatest wish? And he's like, "You are a man." And then later when Wesley turns back into a regular, little boy, Riker's like, "Well, you turned out pretty good, though." Like this. Yeah, grew up to basically look like Wesley Crusher, like scruffy. and considerably sillier. So sorry, I was singing a song. But it turned out to be more difficult than I planned. So on to record said, what if I fail? What if I freeze up with a Borg on our tail? What if the choice I make is wrong? And a record said to me, Wesley, give me a break. It's arrogant to think you'll never make a mistake. But when you're in that position, you only have to ask yourself one question. You ask, what would Captain Picard do? What would Captain Picard do? He'd ensure the safety of his ship and his crew, and then complete the mission, and make himself a better person. He'd bring peace to the galaxy, and he'd do it for free. Oh yeah, that's what Captain Picard would do. Well, I just woke up after 3 centuries, and my first thought was of money, not that my family was gone. This bald guy in a jumpsuit said to me that they'd abolished currency. Everything I worked for was gone. Yeah, there was nothing to withdraw. So I said to him, what do you invest in if you don't have big corporations? He said, we invest in ourselves. And maybe I should try that out for myself. That's what Captain Picard would do. Yeah, that's what Captain Picard would do. He'd ensure the safety of his ship and his crew, and then complete the mission. And he'd make himself a better person, bring peace to the Federation, and earn the Klingons' admiration. Oh yeah, that's what Captain Picard would do. Told us to remove the saucer section, even though we were in warp 9, there was no objection. Yeah, we could have killed the Borg using Q, but we agreed with the captain it was the wrong thing to do. And I'd rather follow Dixon Hill, private detective, than observe some outvoted and vague crime directive. Even after he was tortured for 40 days and nights, he told that guard that scene that there were 4 lives. Confused, the choice is too hard. Just take the Captain Picard.
So that happened.
That was awesome!
I know, right? And now I've got to follow it. That was poorly planned by me. I want to tell you 2 stories today that are related to gaming, because that's sort of why we're all here, right? Because we love gaming. And then when these 2 stories that are related to gaming are over, some more awesome stuff's going to happen, as that is the theme of our hour. This was originally written on October 11th, 2009, which at once seems like a very long time ago and not very long at all. I'm 40, by the way, everybody. Which, I know, right? it's weird. It means that I'm a boy, and that means that I like stuff that catches on fire, and I like knives, and I like things that blow up, and I have managed to not kill myself. So I guess so, right? I live in a little hamster ball of awesome. I roll through the world. We should just blow it up everywhere, leaving just a path of devastation and misery behind me. But I don't care. I'm in the awesome. So this is called Gaming Monkey. While my wife Ann and I drove down the freeway today, the song "Just Like Heaven" came on the radio. This was my first CD, I said. I know, she said. You tell me that every time you hear a song. The album, by the way, is Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me by The Cure. It's quite good. And one day, you'll hear it, and I won't be here for some reason or another, and you'll wish I was here to tell you that. We both pondered the macabre nature of that particular thought. I realized that not only was this album forever linked to my first CD player, but it also gave me these hyper-nostalgic memories of gaming with my group of friends in high school. I don't know what it is, I said, but lately, I've wanted to get together with a bunch of nerds and do a weekend of serious, non-stop gaming. She glanced over at me. Oh? Yes, but this is more than the usual semi-constant, I want to play Car Wars thing. This is a very serious... I paused and searched for the exact word to describe the overwhelming longing, approaching psychophysical need to play, and I settled on Jones. This is a serious Jones, like an addict, you know? I wiggled around in my seat and I faced her. She was driving, by the way. It turns out the awesome hamster ball is not enough to protect you when you're driving. So seriously, put your fucking phone away. I wiggled around in my seat and I faced her. It's like there's... Hey, aren't we going on the 110? Whoops, she said as she quickly changed lanes. It's like there's a monkey on my back. Like a gaming monkey. And he's just rattling dice in my ear. Like he's shaking them in a Yahtzee cup, she said. Gamers don't use Yahtzee. I said as patiently as I could. It's more like he's holding a bag of dice in his hand. I held my hand up and I felt the invisible bag. And he's just rattling. Is it your bag of dice? Yes! It's totally my bag of dice. I paused for a moment and added, he's not opening it. Because if that monkey opens the bag and touches my dice, I will fucking kill him. True story, folks. Just page up to the next thing. I forgot to make an important announcement at the beginning of our hour of awesome together today. If you are encouraged, you are welcome. You would be delighted if you did the following. You can record this hour. You can take pictures. You can make audio and video recordings. Because this is released under Creative Commons license. It is the Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike license. If you don't know what that means, ask the person sitting next to you, and they will tell you. But please, if you are recording this, make sure that your recording of this does not interfere with the ability of the people around you to enjoy as much of the awesome that we can possibly throw off the stage. I'm not going to make a Peter North joke. This was originally written. You're welcome. This was originally written on November 10th. 2009. 2009 apparently was a rather big year for me writing about gaming related and it is called In Place of a Title. Imagine Rick Ocasek walking around on the surface of a pool. In 1993, while killing time between appointments, I wandered into a game shop in the San Fernando Valley. I looked around the aisles, thumbed through the RPG books, talked myself into and then out of buying a ton of unpainted lead figures, and eventually found myself in a conversation with the owner. He picked up a deck of cards and asked me if I'd heard about this new game called Magic. I was a fairly serious war gamer. I had numerous Chaos and Space Marine armies, Terminator Squad, as well as a folder that was bulging with maps and vehicles for Car Wars, Ogre, a couple of homebrew miniature games. Card games were so beneath me, I don't think I even tried to hide my geek snort. You know the one. He had obviously spent time dealing with annoying nerds like me, being a game shop owner and all, and he patiently deflected my contempt as he opened the box and showed me the cards inside. Over the next 10 or 15 minutes, he showed me how this wasn't just a card game, but was actually a beautifully illustrated representation of two powerful wizards using primal and astral energies to duel with each other. By the end of his demo, I was sufficiently intrigued, and I bought 2 decks. I played the game a few times, but it didn't capture my imagination like the board games and role-playing games I love. The mechanics were interesting, but I had a hard time wrapping my head around advanced concepts like tapping and the mysterious upkeep. Perhaps I was not the high-level gamer I thought I was. I went back to that shop a few weeks later. It must have been near a casting office. And I ended up talking to the owner about playing Magic. It's okay, I said, but I'm just not that into it. He reached behind the counter and he pulled out a long box. Maybe you'd like the game better if you had access to all the cards. That box has one of every card in the whole game? Yes, it's $80.
That's absurd.
Dude, there is no way I'm spending $80. I know, it is amazing that I managed to live this long. Flash forward about a year. I'm a guest on a Star Trek cruise, and there's a dealer's room on board. One of the dealers sells Magic cards. I'm looking at them, wondering if this game ever caught on, or if this was old stock he was just burning through. A fellow nerd sees me looking at the cards and tells me that he ran Magic games every week. He asks me if I would be interested in playing with him. $20, a starter deck, and a couple of boosters later, we duel. Flash forward to a few hours later. It turned out that playing with someone who actually knew what Magic was and how the game worked made it a lot of fun to play. It turned out there was a lot more to the game than just dueling, too. There was deck building. Deck building had strategy to it. I bought everything that dealer had on the ship. I spent more than $80. And I spent more time playing Magic with this guy and his wife than I did looking at the Alaskan coastline. I don't remember that guy's name, but I can thank and blame him for making me fall in love with Magic. But for a brief time, Magic ruled my life. I bought boxes of starters and boosters from my friendly local game shop the minute they went on sale. I had a black and blue deck, a green and red deck, a blue and white deck. I even had a vicious black and red deck that had just 51 cards into it, thanks to the abuse of Dark Ritual. Right around the Ice Age expansion, though, I stopped having fun playing Magic in tournaments because it had become an arms race. Whoever had the most money and time to seek out the most powerful cards would usually win the game. Unless I was willing to keep buying new cards every few months, I saw a future where the decks I had now would be obsolete, and I wouldn't be able to play competitively with anyone. Because I was never very good at the game anyway, it didn't make sense to me to commit to that kind of investment. So I put my cards into storage, and didn't play again Until, flash forward to 2005. My son Nolan came home from high school one day, and he asked me if I had ever heard of this game called Magic. That's what his friends were playing. Sure, I said. I used to play it all the time. I still have my cards if you'd like to see them. I went into the garage and I took my big box of games off the shelf. Inside, in a plastic box with tape around the edges to seal it, were hundreds of Magic cards. Wow, that's a lot of cards, Nolan said. Yeah, I had a lot of disposable income when I was younger. What's that? Something we don't have now. I took the box into the house and opened it. Most of the cards were organized by type, but a few decks were still intact. Nolan looked over the cards. This kind of looks like the Pokemon card game, he said. Yeah, it's like that, but not lame. I should point out that I absolutely love Pokemon on Nintendo. Even though I'm terrible at it. I can talk about Pokemon for half an hour now. I pulled out 2 decks and I taught him how to play. Nolan caught Magic fever like a stowaway on a plague ship. I was thrilled to have something that we could do together, so I naturally encouraged his madness. He started taking my cards with him to school and using them to successfully wipe the floor with his peers. He apparently didn't know how to defend against the old ways. High school bitches don't know how to pay the iron price. Then one day he came home very upset. These idiots at school just print out cards online. Fake cards that they got from websites, and they put them in sleeves and think they can play with them. Well, that's complete bullshit, I said. Don't tell your mom I said bullshit. I'm not playing with them anymore, he said. I totally understand that. I'll still play with you, though. And you could always go play at the game shop. The game shop smells, he said. I had no retort. Okay. Well, if you ever change your mind, I'll be happy to take you. We played almost daily for a few weeks, but Nolan eventually got distracted by something new and different that didn't involve spending lots of time with his lame stepfather. Flash forward to 2007. Nolan found interest in Magic again, though he enjoyed deck building more than actually playing. One day he asked me to take him to the game shop to play, and he came home with a rather amusing story. So I went to play with this guy, and when he saw my cards, he got real upset that they were in sleeves because they're so old and apparently valuable. He asked me where I got them, and I told him that they were my stepdad's cards. Nolan didn't ever put his cards into sleeves as a matter of pride, as a way of showing his opponents that he was using actual cards, not printouts like those douchey kids at his school. He actually refused to keep playing with me until I put the cards into sleeves. He did his version of the comic book guy's voice. Those cards are far too valuable. I will not engage in a contest with you until they are protected. For the record, I hate sleeves. They make it so fucking hard to shuffle cards. And I just don't get it. Guys, it's a way for game companies to take more of your money without giving you something worthwhile in return. Say no to sleeves! Anyway, back to the story. I laughed. So he actually gave me sleeves. Put your cards in them so we could play. Nolan started going to the game shop 3 or 4 times a week, spending his allowance on cards and building up several formidable decks, including a sliver deck and a zombie deck that, while apparently not tournament legal, were feared and loathed by the regulars at the game shop. Around this time, I started looking at Magic again, and I rebuilt a few of my old decks from memory. I still wasn't very good at the game, and in the arms race portion of the game, Nolan had nukes, and I had a board with a nail in it. It was still a lot of fun. Flash forward to about a year ago. I got my hands on a box of Time Spiral tournament decks. Nolan and I began playing 2 out of 3 matches using sealed decks and randomly drawn decks from the box. And just like that, Magic was fun again. Flash forward to PAX 2009. I was invited to a party celebrating the release of the latest incarnation of Magic called Zendikar. The people who run Magic at WotC gave me an extremely rare spoiler card, which prompted someone from the D&D side of WotC to say, "Hey, Wheaton belongs to us, hands off." True story. I hadn't looked into the story behind Magic since that cruise in the mid-90s, but I found the concepts inherent to Zendikar, traps, quests, allies, and especially the landfall mechanic, really interesting and unique to the Magic universe. For the first time in over a decade, I was actually excited to play a new release. Now let's flash back to a couple of weeks before this was written. I was invited to play Magic Duels of the Planeswalkers as part of a thing they do on Xbox Live called Game with Fame. Apparently they couldn't get any famous people, and I was like, I'll do it! My only memory of a Magic arcade game was something profoundly disappointing on the PC in the early 90s, so I wanted to play the Xbox version before I accepted. One download later, I settled into the couch with some green tea and began to play. A few hours later, Anne came into the living room and wanted to know why I'd been there for so long. I am doing research. For a thing. I trailed off while I counted life, power, and toughness to see if I could end this match, the 3rd or 4th time I'd played this particular opponent on this turn. Research, she said, because to the untrained eye it sort of looks like you've been playing Xbox for 3 hours. I finished counting. Yes, I would win this turn. I sent my minions to do my bidding. Well, it's both. I told Anne about the Game with Fame event and added, so I need to figure out if I like this game, and if I do like it, if I have any chance of not sucking like the Dodgers when I play against people who actually know what I'm doing. The screen announced my victory. I shot my fist into the air. Yes! Suck on that, fucker! And, sorry, Anne nodded. She is used to this sort of thing. So what's the verdict, she asked. I like it enough to play it for 3 hours today and probably 3 hours every day if I'm not careful. Oh, isn't that wonderful for you? Sarcasm detected! Achievement unlocked. I set the controller down. Don't worry. I have too much work to do to even think about playing the hell out of this. I picked up the controller again. Now, if you'll excuse me. I have just unlocked a new deck, and I wish to play with it. Well, have fun playing with your deck. By yourself. We looked at each other, playing a mini game of who's going to laugh first. I lost. The end. My favorite part of that entire story is the time that I spent playing with Nolan. My older son Ryan and I are super close. We like all the same things. We're science nerds, we're gaming nerds, we're beer nerds. We are exactly, we are very much the same person. Nolan has a lot of different interests than I do. He's way more athletic than I am, and he's just not as cerebral as I am. And I have struggled his entire life to find things that we can communicate through, and these things that we can have in common. And one of the things that has always provided really wonderful common ground for us has been gaming. And it's games like Magic, and games like Button Men, and Battle Lore, and Munchkin, and Small World. And it was the joy that I had playing games with him that kind of sat in the back of my head when Felicia Day and I were talking about developing our show Tabletop. I used to be on a show called Star Trek. I know. You heard a song about it earlier. And this year, Star Trek turns 25 years old. I have been more successful in not killing myself than Star Trek has. And I've been meeting a lot of people going to conventions to sort of celebrate Star Trek. And I have heard consistently from people that are around my age that they watched Star Trek with their parents when they were teenagers. And the reason that they watched Star Trek with their parents was that their parents were fans of the original Star Trek series. They were sort of science fiction fans in general. And they enjoyed, like, they wanted to have a thing to do with their kids. They were looking for commonality with their kids. So they told their kids, look, there's a kid on this show. And that gave the kids sort of a connecting character, a person to whom they could relate and sort of experience the show through. And I hear from these kids that they were weird, and they were really smart, and they were sort of like just didn't really fit in anywhere. And they could really identify with the character Wesley Crusher that I played on Star Trek because of that. And it gave them this thing that they could do with their parents. And I have just pushed 2 teenagers out of the nest. They're 21 and 23 now. And I'm convinced that there's an evolutionary thing that happens that makes teenagers fuckers from about 16 to 19, so that we as their parents don't feel bad about throwing them out. Fine, you're so smart, go! Don't go to the dinner you're going to complain about, we'll be ready. But there's this thing where, like, we all have something that ties us to our parents. There's a thing that creates that bridge, that allows us, when, like, we're done being teenagers, to, like, walk back across that bridge and do that thing where we apologize to our parents, and they go, it's okay, I knew this would happen someday. And then we sort of go on. And Star Trek was that bridge for a generation of kids. And now they're using it the same way with their children, like the titular next generation, the way their parents did with them. And that's what I did with gaming with both of my kids, but especially with Nolan. And when we were developing Tabletop, I said, I just want to make this show that's going to make gaming accessible to people. I want to show people by example that it's awesome, that it's fun, that it doesn't have to be competitive, that it's not weird, that gamers are not antisocial weirdos who can't make eye contact when they play with you, and that this is a wonderful family activity. And according to the feedback I've gotten, we have been successful in that endeavor. And I hear from parents who show their kids Tabletop and are now playing Settlers of Catan with their children. And I met some kids here at Emerald City Comic-Con earlier this year, and I was talking about Tabletop, and one of these kids, he was like 9, and he said, so what games are you going to play on your show? And I said, well, we're going to use like some classic games like Alhambra, and some newer games like Elder Sign. Then of course we're going to play Settlers of Catan. And the minute I said Settlers of Catan, he and his sister, who are roughly the same age, they high-fived each other and they were like, we love that game! And they were so excited that we were going to be communicating to this new generation of kids why we are all here this weekend. And I'm just, I guess my point in all of this is to make the point that I make all the time. Gaming really matters, you guys. What we do is awesome, and we have a responsibility as gamers to be awesome gamers with the people that we play, so that they will be awesome gamers with other gamers, so there will be more gamers, so that PAX could expand to, like, oh, I don't know, Australia. When you play games, don't be a dick. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul and Storm. You know, that kind of high five is going to get us to NASA.
Very, very, very quickly. I don't want to take too much of your time, but since I have a crowd here and a microphone, first of all, I wanted to be a little pissed off at Hank Green. He stole our thunder a little bit because we have a song we were hoping.